try to help give you a little bit of the inside look on what's happening and what we can expect down the road, because there's a lot of unknowns, and I know that you all have a lot of questions too.
There's a known unknowns and unknown unknowns.
Absolutely, but when you look at some of the categories on there, you know, just in general about FIRST, and how we want to appeal to you guys more about volunteers, some new things. So I want to make it worth your while for being here. The fact that you're here, I'm going to tell you some things that maybe others don't know yet, so you got a head start on everyone else. That's really good. It's just a few other key pieces. Probably one of the biggest things is event registration, because we're right in the middle of that, as you guys know.
Yeah, I took a look at all the Ontario events, and I was like, wow, we've only got 3 teams.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to sign up for the next round.
So one of the things is, you know, a lot happens in the background, and teams don't usually necessarily know in advance or when things first come out, but it's much later. So I'm here to share a few things with you. So you know about the 4 programs that we have, including FTC now. So really thrilled about that. That's been a personal passion of mine for more than 10 years. So I've been doing everything I can to work it from backwards to forwards to get FTC into FIRST Canada. But we now have a 5th program, which is First Labour League Discovery Edition. And that's for K-1s now. So even though junior did go K-3 before, we're actually changing that now and allowing this new program. And it's a pilot. There's only so many happening in the world right now. Canada is one out of, I think, 5 pilot partners that they've allowed. And so that's something that's quite cool when you think about it, because we truly do cover, you know, K-12 now, starting from the beginning. And really, again, this slide just basically shares with you that it's ages 4 to 6. And there's a link on there. And by the way, any of the presentations here, they've already archived them online, so you can get access to. So you don't need to worry about writing anything down. And again, just reiterating all the teams that we have, the different levels of FIRST. So I thought, how do we make this more interactive, right? Instead of listening to me talk all the time, because I've been known to talk.
Did you just say that each one of the ones that are going on today are archived?
Yes.
So we can get a hold of them?
Yeah, you'll have all of them. I know I submitted mine already.
So be on the website soon, like within the next week or so.
Yeah. So I have this slide here, which you can pick what you want to talk about. So you can imagine the categories are up there. So hopefully by the end we would have talked about all of them. There's not a ton of things behind those categories, so we can cover them fairly quick. But again, don't hesitate to stop me and ask me anytime detailed questions if you want. The last one there that talks about, you know, let's be frank. It's just some input from Frank Merrick from US, you know, the guru of FRC. So I've had some phone calls with him, but basically you should know already what he might say here, right? Because it's all been posted, it's in his blog and so on. I've had some talks with the lead robot inspector, the key role person in charge of Ontario robot inspectors, and how they're going to navigate the season. So it might be some advice for you guys in terms of the build season and what you can expect. What are the parameters of what you can and can't get away with? Because there's a lot of unknowns this year, right? So I think our inspectors have always been pretty good at giving opportunities, especially at practice facilities, right? They'll come out and they'll say, hey, do you want to do pre-inspection? That might be more important this year because as much as there's so much vagueness and gray area, there also have built up the absolute non-negotiables, right? And one of them is the cheesecaking piece, which I'll share a little bit more with you as well.
There's been a lot of discussion about cheesecake. Isn't it what counts or doesn't count?
Yep. Yeah, so without me getting too much into it, so if one of you wants to pick a category, I can just go to that category for you.
Well, I guess at the start of anything, what's new is always kind of a good.
Okay, let's go to what's new then.
You said, John, I'll take what's new.
Yeah, what's new for $200?
Well, I did think about the Jeopardy, right? But, you know, anyway, I thought this kind of worked really well. It helped me get the presentation done pretty quick. So we already talked about FTC, and we're super excited about that. You know, inferencing. I've always said to my robotics team and my students in the past that when I put something up there, there's meaning behind it, so it's purposeful. So that's why it's always good to come to a presentation, because I might tell you stuff that you don't know or that I don't that would be valuable to you. In 2021, so a year from now, when we get finished this FTC season, we are looking for, starting with FRC teams to host FTC events, qualifying tournaments. So down the road, I don't know, we have X teams a year from now, 2021. I don't know what that number is. If it was the way I want it to go, I'd want 200 teams, right from the 30 we have now. And I see that as not being a problem to attain those teams. The question is, where are they going to compete? Who's going to host the events for them to compete at? And then they'll obviously move on to the championship piece.
Because they need much smaller, like I've seen in Met Worlds where it's like it's the same pit size, but your competition field is like a 10 by 10.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure how seatings and stands or how many like fields you run simultaneously.
Yeah, we're working on that now for down the road, right? Yes, Phil.
Sorry, John, are we not looking at 2020?
This is what's new and
Yes.
into the distant
This
future.
is looking ahead. It's the title of this presentation is What Lies Ahead, and it's not about a focus on lies. It's about the truth of what lies ahead, right?
Yeah.
So
I like.
yeah. So 2020, we're doing our 30 teams. We have one tournament, which is the provincial champs. That's back onto the FLL championships just after Christmas. Yeah.
That's 2019. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
2020 because right now we're working on our off-season events, our 2019, that are about to happen, but our actual events are 2020. Right, so because this tournament falls in, I think, is it the second one or the first one at Durham, the East Provincials for FTC, so that would be the 2020 championships. 2021 is the following year. So we've segued into 2020 right now in terms of our planning. And as a team, when you look at it now, so let's go back to FRC. An FRC team that's up and running now, like 2056 is, how do they look at their conference right now? Are they thinking this is the 2019 conference, or is it the conference that catapults us into our 2020 season, right? So as far as teams go, I go by when I compete. So my first year, even though I started in 2003 with in the new First Canada, that was our 2004 season, was our rookie season, even though we started in 2003, and so on. So that's just the FTC snippet. There's going to be an application come out soon, because we want to know who's interested. So it's important for you to think, hey, what message do I take back to my team? Would we want to run an FTC event? Much like if you run an FLL event, or if you run a VEX tournament, for example. Right? What does that look like? Because FTC is kind of scaled the same size as VEX, right?
Just out of curiosity, what is the bleed over in age? Because there is bleed over in age from one program to the other.
Yeah, there's a confusion between US and Canada. So the US is very specific about how they set ages, but a region or a district like us, or even Michigan, can confine programs to certain grades or age groups. So we're more flexible here. We're going to be from post-FLL, so grade, not post-FLL, because FLL goes to grade 8, but it could be grade 9, right? Nobody would stop teams from going to FLL in a grade 9 class. But now you have FTC, so FTC would be approximately from grade 7 all the way through high school.
Yeah.
Keep in mind though.
That bleed over, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And there's more details, and honestly, we haven't done much of FTC in Canada or Ontario, so it's a bit of a learning curve for us too, right, in terms of all the nitty-gritty. So you quite possibly could ask a fair amount of questions that we might not know the answer to right away, but we can get you those answers. But the key piece on that second bulleted point is the application. That's coming out. It's going to go obviously across the system. Everybody will have a chance, but the turnaround for approving is going to be fairly quick, just as an FYI. And again, I just mentioned the junior FLL discovery, yeah.
Just because when I'm taking these back, approximate number of cost of operating an FTC team is, would you say it's 2/3 of an FRC or even less? I know the sky's the limit as far as that goes, as far as startup and all that.
So here's the thing. FTC, we've had a discussion around this with all the doers and experienced FTC teams. You could get by at 1,500, but really we're targeting 2,500 is
Okay.
the number we tell teams.
Okay.
Now that's the total number, right? So obviously if you're gonna go somewhere far away, you've got your travel expenses, right?
Yeah.
But the other piece with that is, there were also grants that would be normally available,
Yeah.
right? Whether that's this year's done, but next year, for example, right? For amount of grants. So you know how new teams in FRC have grants, you're gonna have grants available for FTC too. And the other key message I should have said about FTC, that's not really well known, has access to that $80 million US in scholarship. So that's pretty crazy, right? So it's high school, and here's the reason why that's important. High school can go from grade 7, or sorry, FTC can go from grade 7 through grade 12. So if in your school you run only FTC, your kids still get access to that $80 million scholarship, which really we know is like 110 million Canadian, right? Fantastic. And one of the key mistakes we're talking before this session started is inform your counselors of what's available, because counselors are way too busy and they just don't know. So how much do they tell a child when the student's sitting in their office and they want to direct them to a program or an extracurricular activity, something that's good for that child, right? What will they say? What will they say about first? So what I did is I used to give a binder to every counselor, and we had one meeting a year, and I would present to the guidance counselors about what the first program is. And then suddenly you would start to see they're sending kids either to my class or to the program. And I was one of those teachers that, just by the way, didn't care if I had too many kids in my class. I was happy to have more kids in for more opportunities. All right, the last point here is really important. I just sat through a very good presentation, 2056. Olivia and Joel talked about chairmans. So those of you that know me know I'm crazy about chairmans. Crazy about robot too. Robot, chairmans, but the child's most important, right? And the chairmans, I think, really brings those opportunities for all kids, all learners. Mentoring certificates came out last year, and what that means is a team that starts an FLL team, mentors a team, starts FTC, starts another FRC, whatever. You can go online to the First Canada site and click the mentor certificate. It gives you the data, and then all you have to do is input. It's very short. It won't even take you a minute to fill this out. And then that gets sent to the team that you're mentoring, and then they say yes, 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 or no. And then they push the button, we see it right away, and then we hit for the digital certificate. So when you go to tournaments or anywhere else and you want to provide evidence of the good work that you do, you're going to have it from First Canada. Think about that for the judges. And here's the key thing. I know as an educator that we don't want our people are busy enough already, so let's not make you do extra stuff. So that whole mentor certification program is based on the chairman's criteria. So you don't have to do it, right? But the judges are going to ask. So last year the judges were told, you can ask about this, but you can't penalize anybody. Like you can't use it as a change maker or a difference maker. This year it's going to be wide open. The judges will use their discretion, but they will know thoroughly about the program, and they will be asking teams. So one of the things that I would say, and I want to be careful I don't cross the line around this, but if I was judging your team and I asked you, so can you tell me the different ways that you can provide evidence of the data you're giving me? You started 27 FLL teams, can you show me some data? And you go, well, if you go to our website and all this kind of stuff, the mentor certificate, you could right away show them 27 certificates. Okay? So it's huge, right? Huge. And these are things that you can accumulate and build over time.
Would it be for, is it for starting new teams, or if you're mentoring an existing FLL team? Or?
Yeah, there's 2 levels in it to address that piece, because there's wide variances between what one team might do to support. The key thing here is if your team and my team in 2056 helped 50-24, right? Only one of us can be the one that is acknowledged as the mentoring team, the lead mentoring team, right? You can't go down 3 levels and all that kind of stuff. And there are questions about, can you do it more than 1 year in a row, right? So we'll tighten that up over time. The big difference this year than last year is that last year, you know how we have these things called hubs?
Yep.
Hubs were not allowed to apply for certificates because it was perceived as an advantage. So we'd only have other teams, but we want to try to make things as equitable across the board for everyone. So this year's going to be more open. Because theoretically, even if you don't have certificates to your advantage, you should as a team, if I'm presenting to you, say you're chairman's, right? And I'm presenting and you guys are the judges, and you ask me about mentor certificates, I might say, we don't have that yet, but our focus is at this, and here's how we develop these kids in these programs. So you can not deflect it, but show another way that you can show the richness of the evidence of what you do. So it's not the only way. It is meant to help judges understand clearly who's embellishing numbers or not. All right, so I'll leave that there. Any questions? Just interrupt me at any time. Oh, sorry. Go back. And stay on my process here. All right, so we'll open it up for any other discussion items. Just choose your topic. You don't have to be shy.
Oh,
Not that you all are.
I'd love to talk about the game pieces and first choice. Just to find
really
out
good
what-
question, and that's the only reason it's up there is it's extremely important. And you know, super experienced teams might say, "Oh, why are you wasting my time?" But you would be surprised at the number of phone calls I get about first choice and what's going on with first choice.
Don't even realize it exists.
Exactly. And what are the benefits? Sometimes the benefits look better than they are, you know, in terms of cost from any mark and the products that come up. Can you use your first choice credits for Studica, for example?
Yes.
And the answer is no, right? The only thing you can do with Studica, and we're trying to change this every year, right, is when you opt out for something and you get a credit, the opt-out credits can be used at Studica. And we'll send you out an email soon, but the key thing is, again, so I see in this room pretty much fairly strong teams, right? So, you know, why is this important for you? Well, first choice, round 1 and round 2. We need you to help us help educate the first community. So many teams don't know when this cycle happens, and it's always too late. And you know, on round 1, even though round 1 is a grocery list of things that you'd want from any mark, and the funny thing is the game's not released yet, so how do you know? So you buy the things you need the most. You have that running list, right? So as a strong team, I would encourage you to share that information with the other teams that you know about, right? So that you can help them make better decisions. It's really tough. Extra game pieces. You can use your first choice credits this year. So you have access to this PowerPoint. Under the Q&A, goes directly to the page with the first choice information and the extra game pieces. So get informed this year. Do you want to get extra game pieces or not? And how do you decide that when you don't know what you want?
Yeah.
But if you go back to Stronghold, you'll remember one ball costs $40, and you couldn't get them. I need to develop a robot that can shoot accurately with the texture, density of a ball, and exact size, exact outside material on that ball. So it's up to you, but I might always ask for one more. But I will say to you, keep in mind, what I do know is Studica, with our fabulous relationship we have with them, they always order extra game pieces. What you could do is you could say maybe you don't want to give up your opt-out money, you want to use that on something else, but just call Studica and say, hey, I'm team so-and-so, I would like you to pull in 2 game pieces for me. And they'll have them right on kickoff. They just can't give them to you. There's a contract where they can't give it to you the day of. You have to wait till the Monday.
Yeah.
So there's, minimizing advantages. Information about 2020 kits that's up there, not so much what's in them, but the virtual kit, things that you can look at in advance and get a hold of. So again, just smart planning, right? That whole idea of planning ahead. I cannot tell you how many times teams are really upset that they can't spend their credits because they've gone too far. And the other deadline is you actually do get to use your credits right up until, I think, the end of March or April, right? So even if you haven't used them. Good to know.
Which is again, even post-season is one of the things that we've often looked at and said, okay, yes, the first sponsors and the first companies that are offering credits and things like that, going through and sort of building up, not letting that money go to waste. One of the things that we've talked about in the London area multiple times is about having post-season wrap-up and saying, okay, if we're gonna put in an order, let's talk to the companies such as Vulcan Spring and say, each one of these robotics teams are gonna place an order, just send it in one box.
Yep.
You know, we'll do the distribution once we're here and stuff. It saves you on shipping, it saves on customs and
idea.
stuff like that. And
Yeah, we're often
Yeah.
connecting it as well.
Andy Mark has told me for years now, can you convince your teams
Yeah.
to do bulk ordering?
yeah,
Yeah,
Right? Like bulk ordering in essence of teams, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. That's a super good tip. That shipping cost is just insane, right? And I don't know down the road, you guys are 2 hours from the border, I guess. Those that are close to a border, not so much you guys are 2 hours too. But I don't know, NAFTA rules when it comes in play
Yeah.
means $200 per person a day can bring
Yeah.
stuff across without any worry, right? So maybe you have a shipping address over there and it goes right to there. You go and bring it across. Bring 2-3 people in your car, bring $600 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Easy, right? What's that?
And there'll be an invoice and everything with the box.
Yeah. And the thing, the other piece too is, for me, getting stuff on time is so important, so hard. And the thing I'll say about Studica, they work like crazy behind the scenes to get you guys what you want. And I know, with anything else, the startup or the ramp up is difficult. And people say, you take too long to get me this stuff and you charge too much and blah, blah, blah. I just know AnyMark is very difficult to get that stuff from the US in time. The good news is, one of the aha moments or the serendipity surrounding No Bag Day, or No Stop Build Day, is that we have an extended 14+ week build cycle, right? So now you can actually afford a little bit longer delay on things. I know you don't want it, but I'm just saying it won't cripple you. Like if I remember 2011, the gearboxes, Bosch extrusion, or not extrusion, Bosch gearbox and motors. Everybody was buying those, and they would sell out, and there were none left. And yours were all falling apart, and you're like, what do I do? How do I design my robot a certain way? It was just such frustration. Anyway, this page, it's just hyperlinked there. It's just part of the Q&A in Frank's blog. Frank tells you, quite a few good things on here about the virtual kit, some of the first choice stuff I just talked about. There's the opting out. Do you want the dry base this year or not? I don't know the price of the dry base, okay? But I'm guessing it's $450 US, so not 600 Canadian, right? The thing is though, when you want to mentor another team, help another team, if you had that kit, that's a darn good kit to just hand over to somebody. And they're not now punking your stuff. And then that's another way to help you be a better mentor team, of a weaker team, right?
I think Tyler mentioned that last year, that 2026 always gets it, and then they just give it. Hey, who wants a pre-buyer tank?
Yeah, 100%. Plus,
Play Santa Claus.
plus the fact that you potentially, if you're a second-year team or something like that, you could have something up and running really quick, right? I know the veteran teams usually have their other robots they can just, retrofit and practice things on. Oh, I keep doing that, so I'm going to just go back to the discussion board here. Is there anything else that's new? There are some other new things embedded in what's coming up, so as you ask the other topics.
Event registration. Since we're in the middle of it, let's see.
The registration. Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because that's probably the hottest topic for today. So this is as of last night. Okay, so some data there. We have 173 teams from last year. We've got rookie teams. So right now we've got 12 rookie teams on the book. So 173, 175, 185 teams. Plus we're going to have more because we're still recruiting, right? Our goal is to have 20 to 25 rookie teams this year. So when you look at the spots available at events and how that impacts you, so you're making a decision now for your next event. The good news this year, and I don't know what the reason was, but we did do a webinar ahead of time to try to help people understand how to pick and all that kind of stuff. The balance worked out really well with the events. So right now, there's actually every event has room. Big, really good. Durham has room.
So 3 spots.
Holy, who would ever think that? The key is they have room with me making the cap at 30. No event right now is available to go over 30. right? So if you go in and you pick Durham, and then suddenly you're on a wait list on that next round, you're like, well, what the heck happened? There will be more spots opening up, just so you know. Because typically Durham is 38, last year was 40, because it's the only way we could mitigate the
I
problems.
noticed Carlton was capped at less than 40.
It is.
But is that the actual cap because of facilities in the game? Though?
No. The rationale behind that is that it's a relatively new region, Ottawa, and typically there's 4 teams in the Ottawa area. So we're focused on growing more Ottawa teams. If I don't cap it at a lower rate and it goes right up to the top and they weren't experienced enough to pick the Ottawa event, the home teams, they're out of luck. So can you imagine being in Ottawa and being forced to go to Windsor and Weston?
Yeah, I do know.
Right? You guys know what that's like, right? So it's really, really difficult. I know that a lot of people like new events, so there's a lot of rationale for why people are telling me they want to go to a new event like Carleton. Just so you know, First Canada always wants to help everybody, and I think you know that already, but don't hesitate to pick up the phone or email and ask questions. We'll tell you everything we can, right, without disclosing stuff that we shouldn't tell you. But the problem is, and just like if you were to start a brand new team right now, rookie team, one of the things I know you would advise the rookie team to do is, the biggest mistake rookies make is they don't ask, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with veteran teams. Veteran teams that maybe are in trouble, they need some help. And I equate it to when you're renting, remember back when we were all Emily's age or a little bit bigger maybe, and we got our first house or apartment and all that stuff. Or a friend who got in financial trouble, couldn't pay their rent. And that person usually waits to the last second to inform the landlord, right? That's what we do in FRC. I usually hear about when it's too late. Talk to us sooner, right? There are things that we could do to try to help teams out. So we're gonna get to some really good stuff here. So 23, what that means is 23 of the 173 haven't registered, including the 12 rookies. So 23 more spots should theoretically be gone before you pick your next event, if everybody gets on board, right? So 23 more spots across the event. So 3 of those could be the Durham one that you're talking about.
With the 23 teams, when they do the first selection, they'll get slotted in the first selection and then we do second round selection? Or
Yes.
do they do everything?
Right now, it's wide open. So you've picked an event, right? So you can't pick another event. System won't let you. But if 2056 hasn't picked yet, they could go in right now and they could pick. And they'll get any event they want because the system's open.
So,
I would never advise this though.
because they
in the
fill up.
future.
Yeah, you could fill up when you're not expecting it.
No, but if you take this presentation from today and say, you know what, next year, we're not gonna do an event because we know there were open spots and we could pick the exact event we want, I wouldn't do that. Do not gamble. So on our webinar last week, we talked about whatever the event is you want, pick just that event, don't pick 2 events. 50% of teams pick 2 events. Oh my God. So, and then that's why I was so worried right up until, because I can't see the number, I can see bits of the numbers, so what I have to do is spend 5 hours and recalculate all the data, and I would know 23 teams didn't, and where people went, but I have to look at every team individually. And this is a really busy time of year, so it's hard to do that. So anyway, right now we're in a first come first serve scenario. So,
Actually,
yep.
how many spots, I know that last year there was only a couple extra spots available across all province that anyone who wanted to do a third event.
Yes.
Do we know, do you have an idea of how many?
I do. If we were filled 100% this year of all spots for all teams, we'd have 18 spots left for third play. So this is a good year. This is the year when there will be way more flexibility than in the past, because it happens every 2 or 3 years, because we've added a new event, that means there's more space,
Yeah.
right? So think about it, an event equals whatever spots are at an event. So let's just say Carleton is 30. That means 15 more teams, spots are available to play, because each team has to play twice, right? So it really only equals 15 spots. But that added on to this year, and the potential of, what could happen this year, maybe a couple teams are concerned about things and so they don't participate, there's going to be more room. This is the 1 year, it's going to be really good. Next year, I can't tell you if we're going to add an event. We could. I'm always lining up. We have other venues lined up for events. But next year, it'll be tighter bit, and then the year after it'll be really tight, and then it'll probably open up again.
You just in that little squeak message there, I mean, we know of two of our London teams that have decided to take a hiatus from this year, got a little burnt out last year. They don't have enough mentors giving them support and foundation. Now, I would imagine, just from my own vision and standpoint, to get back up and motivated into starting a team up again after a 1-year hiatus must be probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yep. So
how do we in our area try and encourage them to come back? Because there was good foundation within the school. I know that the students will be missing that, but how do we sort of re-energize? Because their problem for almost both of those were exactly what you said here, is that they do not ask.
Yep.
They're now past their second year and they're still not asking.
That's a fabulous question, and something I should have actually included in the slide. So when a team does that, you're absolutely right. You drop from, when a team says, I'm going to take a year off, it's like a student in school when they say they're going to take a year off. Chances of them coming back is a lot slimmer than moving forward, trudging forward, right? The key message should be, what help do you need? We're happy to help if you can. Or contact first, because we can help them, and we can help assign mentors. I have a new program coming up this year that I could tell you little bits about, maybe towards the end, that will do exactly that. But trying to do everything to keep them in is extremely important, because once they're out, it's just so darn hard. The key thing is, we now are, this year is going to be different, honestly, with 14 plus build weeks. Are you kidding me? That pressure just, poof. The issue around exams, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's totally gone.
You just have to schedule events carefully around your exam.
Yeah, there were so many things that are happening now that, we didn't anticipate with this no bag. I was against the no bag tag thing myself, personally. Right, I had all these reasons why. But what's happening now is there are so many things surfacing that are of strong benefit to the FRC community. And one of them is, less pressure, less exam. You could spread out more, do 3 days a week instead of 12 days a week on building a robot and all that kind of stuff, right? So hugely different. So I asked some of the lead people in FRC across North America, so from the United States to some of the terrific people we have here in Canada. And here are the key things they told me. Event selection, you see why this is important on the next slide. Your strategy at picking, so you still have time to adjust whatever you're planning to do for the next pick, right? But spread the events out, and what happens when you spread them out, you have more time to modify the robot. I know that's not Einstein stuff to figure out, but it is for the amount. You should see the phone calls I get now from teams that say, oh, I'm going to pick back to back and then I'm done. Yeah, well, how are you going to evolve? How are you going to enhance the benefit of your impact on the second event when you've had no time to adjust? But again, it's up to everybody else, and we all have our reasons why we would do it that way. I just mentioned about the back-to-back, why it's bad. So we do have open spots available, and there will be a few more. So Richard, you were saying that there's 3 spots or 2 spots after one event. All events are dropped down to 30 right across the board, and I'm going to give you my rationale for that. We don't know what's coming, right? As far as the work situation with education and all that kind of stuff. So for me, at this point, if I could have more open spots available later, I could mitigate a problem that happens and help our teams, right? If we go lockjam full right off the bat, it's going to be like, wow, there's nothing I can do, sorry about that. But I know I can mitigate things a little bit. So it's going to help me to some degree, but we'll slowly move back to the normal caps on the events. We are trying to move to a little bit easier cap on all the events to reduce the stress on teams and mentors for being there late on a Sunday and all that kind of stuff, or Saturday, whatever day 2 of the event is. So our target this year is to keep events at 36, which now means same number of matches, 12 matches spread out over more time. Queuing becomes a little bit more relaxed for teams. Tremendous benefits for teams. Again, more spots will be released soon, in addition to what you already see on there. The other reason, spots are held is why, does anybody know? Why do we hold spots back? Just in general, yeah.
Possibly an international team coming in,
Well-
similar like the
Yeah.
drills of.
Yeah, that's a really debatable topic because if your team wants to get to this event, but I've let an international team in, that's not really nice to our Ontario Canadian teams.
But this is what happens to the district points.
Yeah, yeah. But that does come up and that discussion has been surfacing over the last while. The key thing is rookies. We're not done rookies
I was gonna say.
until middle November. So if I get 3 rookies in Windsor, you know, at the end of October,
And they're usually.
and all the spots are gone, right after home event, so we will hold those spots right up until the end. But I will say to you, when you call me or email me, because you're struggling with this event that the algorithm has assigned you, what I tell you is honest. So when I say, I can do this or I can't do that, I'm straight up. But when I say to you, here's my recommendation to you, because when I say that, I'm telling you exactly what you should do, I just can't be too forceful with that, right? So I have 2 levels. One is, you know, you are recommended to do this, and then the next one would be you are strongly recommended, meaning if you don't do this, you're in trouble, right? So we run into that problem quite a bit. And October 10th, you know, 2 weeks from the other one is the next registration, if you could believe that already. Yeah, I think in this case I could just go down the slide. So here's something we've never done before. Oh, there it is. So this is a snapshot of the data that I analyzed for all the event choices. So the data infers a lot of different scenarios. This is going to be available so you can have a look at this. So what this does is, you could build this your own, right? You could go on the website, you could go through every event, do all the analysis and find out what's what. But the left side is the registrations and across our events in our system. The reason I felt this was important to share, and this is one thing that really makes, I think, this session valuable, you can see the pattern. So what people told me last year is what I'm seeing here, which is, you know, the teams in the know say, pick an early event and a late event. So this scenario scared me more than anything, as the guy who everybody's going to come to when they can't get into an event, right? The thing is, exactly what they anticipated has happened. There are only so many spots left. So look at this, you guys. So here's 30, and here's 35 or 36. Nothing goes over 36, right? Right. The buffer this year, you know how it was 38 and 40 would be the buffer if there was no other solution, right? It doesn't matter if 5024 needed that 39th spot, we would just say no, sorry, we can't do it. So this year our target is 36 instead of the 38, but I've just told you everything's at 30. So every event has room. Things to keep in mind, where's March break, right? And unfortunately, y'all know that over here, this column here that doesn't show, district champs is Easter.
Yeah.
So we're in that Easter scenario again, but we always know that. We're mitigating to make it as comfortable for teams as possible. But there you go, there's the registration. So where in that grid are you planning to go next, right? So I typically do this stuff on my own that I don't share out, just so that I can better respond to people, right? So you can imagine what this will look like in 2 weeks. So I'll do it again in 2 weeks, but it's for me to help understand how I can help you, right? Where we can move things around and what we can expect. And just to let you know that, like the thing about a waiver or I'm not responsible for, don't take me at my word kind of thing is, some of these have slightly switched around venues, right? So if you looked at number 7, you can say, well, number 7 is X event, but it will be close to whatever X event could be or is. Any questions?
So are they grouped by weeks, like 1 and 2 are week 1? Like are they grouped by week?
That's a really good question. I could have color coded it. I didn't. This was last night at 11 o'clock. But you're right. Like, no, this is week 1. This is week 2 right here. These two. Week 4. It's a really good question. The first one is solo, the rest are every other weekend. Yeah. So there's some, for me, there are some surprises in this chart. Pleasant surprises that have really helped me. And I also know, like where one is really low, I know that that's typical and it's going to change anyway. So none of this worries me.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I feel pretty good. It's almost what it should have been. All right.
Because I did them all last night.
Any other questions on that last one? And if not, pick an area here to talk about.
Actually, you mentioned number 11, that next week is provincial chats in my house. Segue from vet registration.
Are you want me to click on provincial chats? Is that what you're saying? Is that what I hear you saying? Well, I know.
Bring it there.
I'm gonna tell you, I was hesitant to put this one up. I was really hesitant, but I know I'm getting phone calls and emails all the time now. So the answer about this is that you will know more stuff at the absolute latest is 2 weeks.
When I looked on the first events, I didn't see.
That's right.
This was Jams Ontario wasn't listed.
That's right, because we're still making a decision, First Canada. And because our decisions are based on, really, how can we maximize what's best for teams? So there are sometimes we will make harder decisions just because we know it's going to be better for teams. It might be harder for us, by the way, right? It's not based on what's best for us. The one thing is the week 7 is the one thing that is new information for sure, because up until a little while ago it was maybe week 8. So we're going to try to stretch it out, but we just can't make that happen. So it's going to be roughly those dates for sure. What is slightly different this year, our plan is, and I hope we can hold headquarters to this, so 80 teams, 2 fields, nothing new, right? 1 event. So last couple of years, champs is 2 events. You have a science field and a tech field, you win that, and then you go on to win the champs. The hope is this year it's 1 winner for the whole thing right off the bat.
Oh, like the 70 person.
Yeah, you can play on both
division.
fields.
Okay.
It's like the 70 team divisions that you have at the
Exactly. That's exactly how it is, yeah. So that's a key new piece for teams. There's a lot of benefit in that, right? For teams, you have experience in both fields. You know how your robot reacts. So we're trying to mitigate any problems. But there's a lot of work that has to be done for this to happen, just so you know. So there is a chance it will remain like last year, but our big push is for it to be like this year. We have a lot of upfront work to do with this, with the FMS system, and how it's got to be reprogrammed different than all the other ones, right?
Stupid FMS.
Yeah. So that's provincial champs for now. Any other questions? Yeah.
If it was to be just one event with the 2 fields, how would a line selection work?
Well, it would be just one big line selection.
Like really big
Yeah,
line selection?
yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, just like it rules like.
There's pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the pros and cons. So what do you think is a con?
Tougher scouting.
Pardon?
Tougher
Tougher
scouting.
scouting.
Tougher for scouting, less awards, less success for teams.
Yeah, and less,
Less chat.
when you have 2 fields, then there's more teams that can play.
Yeah.
But
Half the
we're,
teams can play.
More teams get, like the top, 6 alliances get that recognition as divisional winners. But now you wouldn't get it because it's the top 6 in this one whole event, right? So we did this, if you remember, many years ago, 2008, at Hershey Center, where we ran 2 fields.
Yep.
And then it was the winners played off to each other, which is the model we've been using, yeah.
It still doesn't affect how many would go beyond to the world.
No.
So,
Still.
It's just how it
Yeah,
looks.
that's a really good point.
basically, everyone makes eliminations.
One thing,
Make eliminations,
yeah, whether you see this as a pro or a con, I'm not quite sure where I stand on this right now, but what happens when you win your division, so you have 2 fields, you win the division, you get points. When you go into this, you get more points. So this model reduces those extra points, right? So you could look at it 2 ways. One is the strong teams are okay with that because they're going to probably win anyway, and they don't need those points that are on their way. It's the teams that typically just luckily get picked as that 3rd robot or it's the 4th robot. They piggyback on, and then, but it's a good thing because you want everybody to have success. The problem is, for a team that got, if you want to say maybe real fortunate, maybe even say lucky, and got on and was on the winning alliance, they suddenly get a lot more points, and they're going to go to the finals, get a lot more points to add to their ability to make the top teams for Worlds, 30 teams or whatever, right? So that's good. Yeah.
What week is Detroit? See, this is week 7. Detroit.
Houston is week 8.
Okay, so we have so it's 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's the first time ever we have a week between Worlds.
Which is better for shipping, because shipping was
Oh,
always
for
just
everybody.
Well, I know they were talking about whether they would let people bring the robots instead of shipping. There was some
Yeah,
discussion.
we can talk about that at the end if you want. Write it down as a last minute point. So the thing about, you're saying about Worlds, we were looking at week 8, and so you could see the complications there, right? It's better for us, for all our teams, to have week 8. You get a week off. Like you compete at MAC, and then 2 days later, 3 days later, you're at district champs, plus all the money and the hurry up and all that kind of stuff. So that's not good. Week 8, the problem was headquarters is running a world champ, and we want to run our district champs. So how much is headquarters going to help us if we have a problem? Which would be 0.
Yeah, 'cause they want.
Yeah, it was too much of a potential problem. All right. So we've covered first provincials, what's new, the event registration, which is a really big one.
Did we hit most of the season tips for the teams? Because you hit a number of tips.
No, I didn't hit that one. And again, these tips, I don't think they were embedded in the other one. Yeah. So these tips are based again on the 14-week build, right? So the new scenario in front of us. So, do you guys know who Greg Phillips is? Greg Phillips. So he was the superstar coach guy forever for 11-14, right? And one of my best friends. So every year, Greg Phillips and I, we have a full-day barbecue for just him and myself, and we talk about how to be successful. I don't like to use the word win, but we used to build strategies on what it was to be successful, right? And I can tell you it works. And those very simple formula boil down to just a few things. And you guys might have heard this when I talked at your school years ago. The whole idea of get the robot done early so you can practice. And we know you get early success if you have that autonomous nailed down, because most teams don't have the autonomous. And even the strong teams, you see their autonomous tripled in success by the time you get to the second tournament now, right? So this extra 14 weeks, it's got to be up to you. But you know, I'm a believer that when you front load something, and then you can use that time at the end to refine and develop, is a smart way to go. If you're able to do that in your schedule, right? It's up to you. But I would be refining I'd get autonomous programs nailed. I would have all that time to develop the robot. You also have potentially the opportunity where you have space between events, and that space allows you to remanufacture mechanisms, develop alternate mechanisms or secondary mechanisms that you could bring to the tournament around those rules, around, it's kind of like cheesecaking for yourself, right?
It's like you can use Swiss Army knife, and you can decide which blade do I want to use for different, depending on the match, and you can say I want to add this.
So, you know the withholding allowance we always have? So that's gone, right? Which is a good thing. So, the monitoring of what you bring in is going to be a lot less. But their focus is going to be more specifically, and you can see that all on that blog, but around who's bringing in a second robot or not, and all that kind of stuff. So the upgrades between events, which is natural, you guys already know that. The other thing is, because you have more time, the tendency is you're going to drive the heck out of the robot. You're going to practice. And sorry, our formula was the practice, have that autonomous, and you're going to have an opportunity to win worlds, right? And the other key piece that's with that, I mean, the strong teams know this, but if you build your robot to win in Ontario, good chance you're not going to win at the world level. You've got to be able to build so that you're going to be able to win the world championships, right? Just something to think about if you have the resources to do that. Engage with teams with full fields for practice. So here's an alert for you. That's new in this presentation. You heard it right here. Studica is not providing a practice field this year. So we've done that last 2 years ago. We had like 18 teams have come down. It's crazy. But other venues have them. So buddy up, engage conversation with them, and get time on that practice field. Because now you have 14 weeks. The problem is, the more you practice, the more that robot gets used, right? And I can tell you, I know, people in the know, if, on bag and tag night, if I looked at your robot, I or somebody else who has some experience will look at it and go, well, that robot design, there, with your axles there, that's not great, because if you play all year long, it's gonna fail on you. Oh, no, it won't, right? And then you get to the finals at Worlds, boom, your robot's out because the axle's broke, or whatever type of hubs you use to hold your axles on. Just as one example. So again, more opportunity on that 14 weeks to refine the robot for things that could happen, right? It's not just about how good your robot is. Like, for example, the Frisbee year. The first thing about the Frisbee year that I thought was a problem, I don't know if you guys had this when it came out, was could your robot get stuck on a Frisbee? Like if a Frisbee turns upside down. Can your robot pick the Frisbee up if it's upside down? And can it shoot it if it's upside down, right? So I remember saying that to a team. And Durham, very first match of the finals, and the team went on top of the Frisbee and got stuck for the whole match. I call those red flags, right? So it is clear, this whole idea of what you can or can't bring in terms of a robot and what you're giving to another team to compete, right? That part they've cleared. What's really important, and from Frank's thoughts that we haven't really covered yet, but it's around this cheesecaking piece and the second robot. Those are the two more definitive pieces that they finally come up to. Everything else is up in the air. So they're trying to do their best. They even have said to me it's going to take years before we get it right about what this no-stop build day looks like.
What was it like before? Did they always have a stop build day? Or did they have a shipping day because you had to ship it by this point in order to get it?
Well, the history of first. Years ago, on that the Tuesday of the end of the build, 6 weeks, it had to be shipped out of your school in the crate by that day, gone. You had to show the FedEx receipt of it gone. You had to fax that into headquarters. So then we got the bag and tag, which all seemed pretty good. So the other question is, will they allow us, and where are they with us bringing our own robots to Worlds? I would love that, right? You can imagine the shipping. But anyway, we finally got that down pretty good, right? The shipping process is pretty good. It's easy on y'all. The question is, what if FRC comes out in another month or two and says, you know what? Ontario can bring their own robots. So what are you going to do? Are you going to bring your own robot? Or are you going to ship with FRC, like me, like FRC Canada? So I don't know where we are on that. My personal feeling would be everybody should still ship through us because we can get it through the border.
But
You know how long it takes to get from
border
Windsor to
challenges.
Cobo Hall? 35 minutes, including customs, because of our ability to clear it. I would hate for you to take your own robot and it gets stuck. And for Worlds, like you're toast, right?
Yeah.
All right, anything else up here?
Let's be frank.
Did we look at Frank before, or no? No, I can't remember if there was what was in there. Well, just like what I told you about the years to erratic. But why I didn't put much up here was, he just told me the same thing I'm telling you. Go to his blog. He's got tons of stuff on there. And I said, is there anything in between what's in that blog that you can give me to share with our teams? Because there's going to be a lot of teams. And he said, no, everything is there. Absolutely everything is there. So again, the hyperlink is in there, but I mean, you just go on first. And his blog is right under FRC, right on the right side of our menu. And again, he's just talking about the complexity. He presented to us in June. We have a week-long conference in June at headquarters. I think Phil was even in the room for that meeting. And we were all excited. Frank's got a presentation coming, right? And when we came in, all his presentation was a text-based slide of 17 points. That's all it was. And what the basic gist of it was, there's only 2 things on there we've solved, the rest we don't know what we're going to do. And that was in June. And that was about the stop build day stuff. So I'm impressed with what they've done so far because I've sent them a lot of feedback on why it's not good, and they're coming back with good solutions. I just wanted to finish off a little bit more about that mentoring certificate piece. Did I just talk to one or two about it at the beginning, or was everybody here? So,
The mentoring certificate.
were you all here? Any questions about the certificates then?
It was, last year was very easy to print, like I know last year's
Yeah.
certificate.
So this year's,
Deep space was
it's way
nice.
more important,
Yeah.
because this year, it really counts.
Yeah.
Just saying. Yeah. Is it 11 o'clock? Well, you know what, why don't I just, was there anything else?
I think it's just volunteering.
Well, volunteering, so you know what, just on the volunteering piece, so, have you ever gone to an event and felt like, oh my gosh, all the key volunteers at the FMS are, so many are from one or two teams, you ever
Mhm.
feel it? So how can you change that? You can bring forward people that are good volunteers, that we could adopt and bring in to the key role volunteer piece, right? Phil is, you all know Phil, back here, Phil Homoski. He's the VC, Volunteer Coordinator Lead, for all of Ontario, right? So he's going to be working with a few key people to really look at that recruitment and the development and training piece for volunteers. I can't stress enough for you to, when you know you've got a couple of people that have that leadership piece, identify them to come forward, because it's to me, it's what's even better for that child, be on the team. Right, so when you look at what's good for them, be on the team, right? And what I've learned, and I'll tell you, I remember having these conversations back with the alum or the senior students on my team from before, and they would be, oh, sorry, I can't do that. I've got to focus on my team. It's got to be all my team. I look now at that team, and I look at the alumni that are back with that team, but have grown so much because of their involvement across First, right? And that's really what we're here for. It's not about them making bits and pieces of our team better and we win and all that kind of stuff. It's about everybody on the team becoming more successful in life. Anyway, I think I've gone past the time already. Oh, it's not?
No, you're good till lunchtime.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, any questions? That's it for me on this piece. Well, the growth, eh? That's my next slide. What? We didn't talk about that, eh? Or did we? No. So 2020, these are the numbers for the world. So this is the number 185 that I send into headquarters in a year in advance. That's my best guess at how we're going to grow teams in Ontario. So we're pretty close to that. We're sitting at 185 right now, right? So, but I know that 7% yield rate, all that kind of stuff, teams will drop out, blah, blah, blah. So I'll have to get more than 185 to end up at 185. But globally, 4,000 teams this year. FRC teams, right? That's a lot of teams. Now you start to see, well, I guess you need 2 world championships to handle 4,000 teams, right? Because way back when it was 800 teams in one event, we at Atlanta, and we thought that was crazy, right? But now, how do they mitigate all those teams?
Sorry, just
yeah.
as you're talking about team, and as was mentioned, if we are talking to a team that we know that goes on hiatus for a year or something like that, how long do they get to hold on to that number?
Oh,
Or do
forever.
they? Okay, they can go right back to it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
20 years, doesn't matter. And headquarters will never give that number away, ever. The only time, like somebody just signed up last year for a number, but it was another team's number, but that team was contacted and that they would never want to do that. Okay, last piece to tell you about, this coming Saturday, a week from today, Project Green, so First is heading off this thing, and you could upload your photos of some team members doing that, wear your First jerseys, right? Any kind of cleanup outside, and there's prizes. But there's also, your team members will be posted on our website, right? So there's more exposure for your team. And this piece here, this paragraph here, you know, I'll tell you, so like if I was 2056 sitting here, I'd go, oh, how could our team start doing this right away? Right? But this other one about, could we start a campaign where all the teams in the province wears their team jerseys on this one day in school? Right? All levels of programs, not just FRC, right? It'd be crazy. Talk about building awareness piece, right? But this is going to be fun because this is Annika Pent. She's TDSB robotics coordinator, but we're so happy she's now with us full time. We pulled more people from the good people in TDSB. But she's with us full time, and she's done this picture, but this is to encourage all of us. So tomorrow or next Saturday, even though I'm going away for the weekend, I'm gonna go outside and do that, and, you know, not do it just for the show, but, you know, does your team ever go to City Hall, to the councilors, and talk to them about, hey, let's go clean up 3 parks, and have that scheduled, like that kind of thing? So again, it's just, we're trying to show first doing a lot more good things for the community beyond just robotics, right?
It was too bad, John, that our board in particular sort of frowned upon us having e-waste collection blitzes. They felt that it was sort of cutting into
Contracts.
yeah, into the board contracts of
board.
e-waste collection and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So they kind of put the kibosh on it. But we had 3 absolutely over-the-top, mind-blowing success on those sort of things, and we'd love to be able to sort of put the pressure back on. But we've just sort of changed the address on that. But
Our big focus is we're trying to touch base with community people, see if we can re-engage them.
re-energize it.
Yeah. There were a couple, the presentation before us, again, the chairman's one from 2056, which was really good. And there was one thing that I'd like to share with you guys. So I'm nuts about chairmans, right? And one of the hardest things for a chairman's group, when they get judged, is the questions you get afterwards. And how do you prepare those students to answer any question that comes from the, you know, the judges, right? And I know one of the things that I learned that worked quite well was, if you take all of those good things your team does, but you chunk them into categories. Somehow you just, you know, if you put 15 pieces of data about what your team does into your presentations, split it into groups of 5 or 3. And what happens is you train your students to be able to respond to any question. Any question the judge asks is going to fit one of those categories. And your students would just pull on that category of information that you do, and the answer is easy. And that's the piece that I find gets missed all the time with the chairman's piece. That other piece is the real evidence or the data around what you do, and that's why I'm so stoked about the mentor certification piece, because we really help you better provide that evidence of the good stuff you do. Hey.
John, I just wanted to say about your issue, I think that's something that maybe we might have some help as well at